Shipman was born into a working-class family in Manchester. A bright child, he became interested in medicine as he watched his mother receive morphine injections to ease the pain she suffered while dying of lung cancer. In 1970, he received a medical degree from Leeds University, and a few years later, he became a general practitioner in Todmorden in Lancashire. In 1975, after it was discovered that he had written several fraudulent prescriptions for the opiate pethidine, to which he had become addicted, he was forced out of his practice and into drug rehabilitation. In 1977, Shipman found work as a general practitioner in the town of Hyde in Greater Manchester, where eventually he gained respectability and developed a thriving practice. In 1998, one of his patients, an 81-year-old woman, was discovered dead in her home only hours after Shipman visited her. Her family was perplexed by the suddenness of her death. She had appeared to be in good health. By the fact that her will had been changed to benefit Shipman, it bequeathed her entire estate, valued at some £400,000, to him, and by Shipman's insistence that no autopsy was necessary. In 2000, he was convicted on 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery and sentenced to life in prison. Shipman committed suicide while in prison, hanging himself in his cell. A government inquiry was ordered to determine how many more patients Shipman may have murdered. In 2005, an official report found that he had killed an estimated 250 people beginning in 1971. In most cases, Shipman injected the victim with a lethal dose of the painkiller diamorphine, and then signed a death certificate attributing the incident to natural causes. His motives were unclear. Some speculated that Shipman may have been seeking to avenge the death of his mother, while others suggested that he thought he was practicing euthanasia, removing from the population older people who might otherwise have become a burden to the healthcare system. A third possibility raised was that he derived pleasure from the knowledge that, as a doctor, he had the power of life or death over his patients, and that killing was the means through which he expressed this power. Despite his forgery of the will of one of his victims, financial gain appears not to have been a serious motive. One key question that plagued investigators was how such a large number of deaths could have occurred without raising suspicions of foul play. This was all the more baffling because Shipman's patients were normally healthy shortly before their encounters with him. The fact that Shipman took advantage of his patients' trust in him as a doctor made his crimes particularly odious to the public. Lopez was born on October 8, 1948, in Santa Isabel, Colombia. His father, Medardo Reyes, was a member of the country's right-wing party who was killed in La Violencia. Lopez's mother, Benilda, was 3 months pregnant with her son at the time of his father's death. Pedro, who was reportedly the seventh child among 13 siblings, was polite as a boy and wanted to be a teacher, according to his mother. But Lopez later said his mother was physically abusive and a sex worker who also was assaulted by clients. Some reports have claimed that he was kicked out of the house by Benilda after fondling a younger sister, while other accounts say he ran away. Lopez traveled to Bogota, the capital city of Colombia, where he became one of the homeless children known as gamines. He eventually joined a gang and smoked bazuco, an impure form of cocaine. While on the streets, a stranger approached Lopez and offered him a bed, but instead took the youngster to an abandoned building and sexually assaulted him. When he was 10 years old, Lopez said that an elderly American couple found him on the streets and gave him a home, enrolling him at a school for orphans. But while there, Lopez was molested by a teacher when he was 12, and he thus ran away once again. Lopez would eventually speak of wanting vengeance for his suffering as a child. Having grown up on the streets, Lopez was arrested at 21 years old. Some reports say he was 18 for stealing a car. Soon after his imprisonment, he was raped by at least 2 men and in retaliation killed his attackers with a makeshift knife. Accounts differ on whether he received additional jail time for the murders. Upon his release from prison, it is then believed that Lopez started to seek out young girls, usually of indigenous background and limited economic means. He made his way to Peru, where he would lure his victims to remote areas, committing rape and murder, later reporting that he murdered dozens during the mid to late 1970s. Lopez was caught by the Ayachucos community when he attempted to kidnap a 9-year-old, with the group submitting him to tribal law and attempting to bury him alive. A Western missionary convinced tribe members to turn Lopez over to the Peruvian police, who promptly deported him to Colombia without truly considering the crimes inflicted upon natives and the danger posed to society. Captured in Ecuador, Lopez continued the murders and by the late 70s had made his way to Ecuador, where scores of girls began to go missing as well. Families tried to find the girls on their own, with one mother putting ads in newspapers about her missing daughter. In the Ambato region in 1980, Vander Carlina Ramon and a group of her peers caught him in Ecuador when he attempted to lure Ramon's daughter from a busy market. Once Lopez was in police custody, he initially refused to cooperate with authorities until investigator Pastor Cordova Godino went undercover as a fellow inmate. Gaining Lopez's trust, Godino was able to get a confession from Lopez, as well as details about sites where the victims were buried. Police ultimately unearthed 57 bodies. Some reports give the number as 53. Coupled with his confessions, Lopez was charged with 110 murders. He claimed to have been responsible for around 200 more deaths in the neighboring countries of Peru and Colombia. On July 31, 1981, 33-year-old Lopez pleaded guilty to the murders of 57 girls and was imprisoned in Ambato, where he was officially diagnosed as a sociopath. Because of Ecuador's laws, Lopez only received a maximum sentence of 16 years, much to the public's enormous outrage. Ecuador would later change its maximum prison sentence to 25 years. On August 31, 1994, Lopez was released from Garcia Moreno prison after serving 14 years, having been released 2 years early for good behavior. He was summarily deported to Colombia, where authorities there attempted to convict him of a 2-decades-old murder. But instead, Lopez was declared insane and, in 1995, institutionalized in a psychiatric facility. Pedro Alonso Lopez's story serves as a grim reminder of the evil that can lurk behind a seemingly ordinary facade.